I stared at the envelope in my hands, my name written in my uncle's distinctive handwriting. Around the dining table, my cousins were already tearing into theirs, laughing and joking. It was Thanksgiving, and Uncle Richard had just handed each of his nephews and nieces an envelope, telling us not to open them until he left the room. The moment the door closed behind him, chaos erupted. "Oh my God, it's a check!" my cousin Brandon shouted, waving his in the air. "For $50,000. My sister Michelle grabbed hers. "Mine too, 50 grand. One by one, they all confirmed the same thing. 8 envelopes. 8 checks for $50,000 each. $400,000 total. Then Brandon squinted at his check and burst out laughing. Wait. Look at the signature." He held it up to the light. Where Uncle Richard's signature should have been, it just said "nice try" in his handwriting. "Are you kidding me?" Michelle groaned. "They're fake. He does this every year with something. Remember last Christmas when he gave us all winning lottery tickets that were just printouts? That's so Uncle Richard," my cousin Jason said, crumpling his check. "Always with the jokes." I looked down at my own envelope, still unopened. My mother, who was sitting across from me, caught my eye and shook her head. "Don't embarrass yourself, Logan," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension I'd heard my entire life. "You're 28 years old. You should know better than to fall for your uncle's pranks." But something felt different this time. Uncle Richard had pulled me aside earlier, before dinner. He'd looked me in the eye and said, "Logan, I mean it this time. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Then he'd squeezed my shoulder and walked away. I slid my finger under the flap and opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000, made out to me, dated today, and where the others had "nice try," mine had Uncle Richard's actual signature. I'd seen it hundreds of times on birthday cards, Christmas gifts, the title to my first car that he'd helped me buy when my parents refused. This was his real signature. "Well," Brandon said, "what does yours say?" "Better luck next time." I folded the check and put it back in the envelope. "Yeah, same as yours. Nice try." My mother smiled, satisfied. "At least you're learning." But I wasn't learning. I was lying. Because something in my gut told me this check was real. The thing is, I'd always been the odd one out in my family. My parents had 3 kids. Michelle, who was a lawyer at 32, pulling in 6 figures. Brandon wasn't my brother. He was my cousin, but he was the golden child too, working in finance, engaged to a doctor. Then there was me. I'd chosen to be a social worker. Made $38,000 a year. Lived in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood because it was near the community center where I worked with at-risk kids. I drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic that Uncle Richard had helped me buy for $3,000. My parents had made it clear, repeatedly, that I was a disappointment. At every family gathering, my father would introduce Michelle as my daughter, the lawyer and me as Logan. He works with, troubled kids or something. My mother was worse. She'd forget to invite me to family events. She'd buy Michelle designer bags for Christmas and give me a $30 gift card to Target. When I graduated with my master's in social work, she didn't come to the ceremony, said she had a nail appointment. But Uncle Richard had been there, front row, cheering louder than anyone. Uncle Richard was my father's older brother, never married, no kids of his own. He'd made his fortune in commercial real estate, quietly buying up properties in Brooklyn before the area gentrified. By the time I was born, he was worth somewhere north of $20 million. He'd always treated me differently than my parents did. Not better than my cousins, just like I mattered, like my choices were valid. When I told him I wanted to be a social worker, he'd said, "The world needs more people who give a damn, Logan. I'm proud of you." My parents had said, "What a waste of your intelligence." So that night, after Thanksgiving dinner, I sat in my apartment and stared at that check. $50,000. It would pay off my student loans. All of them. I'd been paying $400 a month for 6 years and barely making a dent in the principal. My phone buzzed. A text from Michelle. "Mom wants to know if you're coming to brunch on Sunday. Also, can you believe Uncle Richard's fake check prank?" So, random lol. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up my banking app and looked at my checking account. $847.32. That was it. 2 days before payday. My student loan balance, $47,293.18. I looked at the check again. The signature looked real. The routing numbers looked real. The account number looked real. Everything about it looked real, except for the fact that all the other checks had been fake. But Uncle Richard had pulled me aside. He'd said it was real this time. At 2:47 a.m., I made a decision. First thing Monday morning, I was going to the bank. I barely slept. By the time my alarm went off at 6, I'd been awake for 2 hours, second-guessing myself. What if my mother was right? What if I was about to humiliate myself? I called in sick to work, which I never did. Marcus, my supervisor, could tell something was up, but he didn't push. "Take care of yourself, man," he said. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:47, sitting in my car, the check in my wallet. I watched the employees arrive, unlock the doors, turn on the lights. At exactly 9, I walked in. The teller was a woman in her 50s named Patricia, according to her name tag. She smiled at me. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I slid the check across the counter. My hands were shaking. "I'd like to deposit this, please." She picked it up, examined it. Her eyebrows rose slightly at the amount, but she didn't comment. She typed something into her computer. Then she stopped. Looked at the check again, typed some more. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "One moment, please," she said, and picked up her phone. This was it. This was where she called security. Where she told me the check was fraudulent. Where I became a family joke for the next decade. A man in a suit emerged from an office in the back. The branch manager, based on the title on his door. He walked over to Patricia, and they had a whispered conversation I couldn't hear. He looked at me, then at the check, then at his computer screen. Then he walked around the counter and extended his hand. "Mr. Parker, I'm David Chen, the branch manager. Would you mind stepping into my office for a moment?" My mouth went dry. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all. Just want to verify a few things. Standard procedure for large deposits." I followed him into his office, feeling like I was walking to my execution. He closed the door and gestured for me to sit. He sat across from me, the check on the desk between us. "Mr. Parker, do you know Richard Parker? He's my uncle." David nodded. "And he gave you this check?" "Yes. Yesterday. Thanksgiving." "Did he say anything when he gave it to you?" I hesitated. "He said it was real this time. That I shouldn't let anyone tell me otherwise." David's expression softened. "Mr. Parker, I need to tell you something. Your uncle set this up 3 weeks ago. He came in personally, met with me, and gave me very specific instructions." My heart stopped. "What kind of instructions?" "He said he was giving checks to all his nieces and nephews. That most of them would be fake, but one would be real. Yours. He said you were the only one who would actually try to deposit it, and when you did, I was to call him immediately." "I don't understand." David picked up his phone. "He's waiting for my call." He said, and I quote, "The moment Logan walks in, I want to know. Don't make him wait." He dialed a number and put it on speaker. Uncle Richard answered on the first ring. "David? Is he there?" "I'm here, Uncle Richard," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Logan," I could hear the smile in his voice. "You actually did it. You came to the bank. The others said it was fake. Mom said I'd embarrass myself. I know what they said. I was counting on it." He paused. "The check is real, Logan. Every penny. Deposit it. But why? Why only mine? Because you were the only one who would appreciate it, the only one who needed it, and the only one who had the guts to trust me when everyone else was calling you a fool." David Chen was smiling now, watching my face. "I don't know what to say," I managed. "Don't say anything. Just deposit the check. Pay off those student loans. Buy yourself a car that won't break down every 3 months. And Logan? Don't tell anyone. Not yet. This is between you and me. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good." David, process the check. "Logan, I'll see you at Christmas." The line went dead. David stood up and shook my hand again. "Congratulations, Mr. Parker. Let's get that deposited." 15 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with a receipt showing my new checking account balance, $50,847.32. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at it. $50,000. Real money. In my account, I should have driven home. Should have kept my mouth shut like Uncle Richard said. But I was so overwhelmed, so grateful, so vindicated after a lifetime of being told I wasn't good enough, that I made the biggest mistake of my life. I called my sister. Logan, what's wrong? You never call. Michelle, remember Uncle Richard's check? The fake one? Yeah, what about it? It wasn't fake. Mine wasn't fake. I just deposited it. $50,000. Silence on the other end. Michelle? You're lying. I'm not. I'm sitting in my bank parking lot right now, looking at the receipt. Let me call you back. She hung up before I could say anything else. My phone rang 30 seconds later. My mother, Logan Andrew Parker. What is this nonsense your sister is telling me? It's not nonsense, Mom. Uncle Richard's check was real. Mine was real. That's impossible. They all said, nice try. Mine didn't. Mine had his real signature. I just came from the bank. It cleared. Another silence, longer this time. I don't believe you. Believe what you want. I'm looking at the receipt. I heard muffled voices in the background. My father, asking what was going on. Michelle, saying something I couldn't make out. Then Brandon's voice, loud and clear. If Logan's check was real, then maybe ours were too and we just threw them away. Oh no. Logan, my mother said, her voice sharp. Where are you? I'm not telling you that. Did Richard say anything about the other checks? No. You're lying. He must have said something. Why was yours different? I don't know, Mom. But I did know. Uncle Richard had tested all of us, and I was the only one who'd passed. We're calling Richard right now, my father said, his voice in the background. This is ridiculous. They hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, realizing what I'd just done. Uncle Richard had told me not to tell anyone, had specifically said this was between us. And I'd immediately called my sister. My phone exploded with messages. Brandon, did you really deposit it? Call me now. Jason, dude, my dad is losing his mind. Is your check actually real? Michelle, Mom and Dad are calling Uncle Richard. This better not be some kind of joke. My cousin Sarah, what's going on? Brandon said something about Uncle Richard's checks being real. I turned off my phone. For 3 days, I didn't answer calls or texts. I went to work, came home, and tried to process what had happened. The money was real. It was in my account. I'd already scheduled payments to my student loan servicer. In 2 weeks, I'd be debt-free for the first time in 6 years. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd messed up, that I'd failed some kind of test. On day 4, Uncle Richard called my work phone. Logan Parker, Social Services, how can I help you? You can help me by explaining why you told your entire family about the check when I specifically asked you not to. My stomach dropped. Uncle Richard, I'm so sorry. I was overwhelmed, and I called your sister within an hour of depositing it. Yes, he sighed. Logan, do you know what happened after you did that? No, sir. I turned off my phone. Your mother called me 17 times. Your father called me 12. Each of your cousins called multiple times. Brandon showed up at my apartment at 10 o'clock at night, demanding to know if his check had been real. I'm sorry. They all wanted to know why yours was real and theirs weren't. Why you got the money and they didn't. Your mother accused me of playing favorites. Your father accused me of trying to drive a wedge in the family. I closed my eyes. I ruined it. You did. But you also did exactly what I thought you would. I opened my eyes. What? Logan, the check was a test. But not the test you think. I don't understand. The first test was whether you'd trust me enough to deposit it. You passed that one. The second test was whether you could keep it to yourself. Whether you could have something good happen to you without immediately seeking validation from a family that's never validated you. The words hit like a punch to the gut. You failed the second test, he continued. But you know what? I expected you to. Because that's what happens when you grow up being told you're not good enough. The moment something good happens, you can't believe it's real. So you need someone else to confirm it. I couldn't speak. Your mother demanded I tell her if the other checks were real. I told her the truth. They were all fake. Only yours was real. You know what she said? What? She said, it wasn't fair. That I should give all of you real checks, or none of you. That singling you out was cruel to the others. I asked her if she remembered mocking you at dinner, calling you foolish for even considering depositing it. She hung up on me. I leaned back in my chair, phone pressed to my ear. Uncle Richard, I really am sorry. I know you are. And Logan? The money's still yours. I'm not taking it back. You earned it by being the only one brave enough to trust me. But I want you to think about something. What's that? Why did you need to tell them? What were you hoping would happen? I thought about it, really thought about it. I wanted them to know I wasn't stupid, I said finally. I wanted them to know I was right and they were wrong. And did you get that? No. They just got angry that they didn't get money too. Exactly. Logan, people who don't value you when you have nothing won't suddenly value you when you have something. They'll just resent you for having it. We talked for another 20 minutes. He wasn't angry, not really. Just disappointed that I'd learned I couldn't trust my family to be happy for me. Before he hung up, he said, Christmas is in 3 weeks. I'll see you then. And Logan? This stays between us from now on. No more family updates. Yes, sir. But the damage was done. My mother stopped inviting me to Sunday brunch. When I asked Michelle about it, she said, Mom thinks you're getting a big head about the money. Brandon stopped responding to my texts entirely. My father sent me a long email about how Uncle Richard was driving a wedge in the family and how I should be more considerate of my cousin's feelings by not flaunting my good fortune. I hadn't flaunted anything. I'd made one phone call. Christmas came, and the family tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Uncle Richard showed up to my parents' house for dinner, as he did every year, and the moment he walked in, my mother cornered him in the kitchen. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I caught phrases. Not fair to the others and always favored Logan, and what about Brandon's feelings? Uncle Richard's response was calm but firm. My money, my choice. Logan needed it. The others didn't. Brandon has student loans too. Brandon makes $90,000 a year and drives a BMW. Logan makes $38,000 and drives a car held together with duct tape and prayer. There's a difference. My mother didn't speak to Uncle Richard for the rest of the night. But Uncle Richard sat next to me at dinner and asked me about work. About the kids at the community center. About whether I'd paid off my loans yet. Paid them off completely last week, I told him. It felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. He smiled. Good. That's what it was for. After dinner, he pulled me aside and handed me another envelope. Don't open it here, he said quietly. Wait until you're home. I nodded, slipping it into my jacket pocket. When I got home that night, I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in his handwriting. Logan, by the time you read this, you'll know that I gave you something your cousins didn't get. I'm writing this to explain why, because I know your family will make you doubt yourself. I've been watching all of you grow up for 3 decades now. I've seen which of you came to visit me because you cared, and which of you came because you thought there might be something in it for you someday. You were the only one who visited me in the hospital when I had my heart attack 4 years ago. Brandon was too busy. Michelle was on vacation. Sarah sent flowers. You took a week off work you couldn't afford and slept in my hospital room in that horrible chair. You were the only one who called me on my birthday last year, and the year before. And every year for the past decade, you were the only one who asked me how I was doing when you visited, instead of telling me about your own life and waiting for me to offer you something. You chose a profession that helps people instead of one that makes money. Your parents think that makes you a failure. I think it makes you the best person in this family. The check was real. The money is yours. You earned it through years of being kind when kindness wasn't rewarded, and caring when no one cared back. Don't let them make you feel guilty for being valued by someone. Don't let them convince you that you don't deserve it. You're worth more than they'll ever understand. Love. Uncle Richard. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning in March, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Logan Parker? Yes. This is James Morrison, attorney at Morrison & Associates. I represent your uncle, Richard Parker. I'm sorry to inform you that Richard passed away yesterday morning. He had a massive heart attack in his sleep. The world stopped. What? I'm very sorry for your loss. Richard left instructions that I was to contact you immediately. Are you able to come to my office this afternoon? There are some matters we need to discuss regarding his estate. I barely remember driving to the lawyer's office. I barely remember sitting down in the conference room. I was numb. James Morrison sat across from me, a thick folder in front of him. Logan, I'm going to be direct with you. Your uncle changed his will 3 months ago. The previous version left his estate divided equally among all his nieces and nephews. The new version leaves everything to you. What? His entire estate. The properties, the investments, the cash assets. All of it goes to you, with the exception of a few small charitable donations he specified. I couldn't breathe. How much are we talking about? James consulted a document. After estate taxes, approximately $18 million. The room spun. That can't be right. It's right. There's also a letter he left for you. He slid an envelope across the table. My name, in Uncle Richard's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. Logan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't get more time with you. I'm sorry I won't see what you do with this money. But I know what you'll do with it. You'll do something good. I'm leaving you everything because you're the only one who will use it to make the world better instead of just making your own life more comfortable. Your mother will contest this will. She'll say I was senile, that you manipulated me, that this isn't fair. Let her try. James has enough documentation of my mental competency to shut down any challenge. Your family will hate you for this. They already resented you for the $50,000. This will make it permanent. But you don't need them. You never did. Use the money wisely. Help those kids at the community center. Start a foundation if you want. Buy yourself a house. Take a vacation. Fall in love. Live a life. And Logan, stop seeking validation from people who will never give it. You're already enough. You always were. Love, Uncle Richard. P.S. The $50,000 was your first test. Keeping quiet about this is your second. Pass it, this time. I sat in that conference room for an hour, reading and rereading the letter. James explained that the will was airtight. Uncle Richard had undergone psychological evaluation specifically to prevent any competency challenges. He'd documented his reasoning. He'd made sure I would get what he wanted me to have. What do I do now? I asked. You wait. The will goes to probate, which takes about 6 months. During that time, your family will likely be informed of its contents. I'd prepare yourself for their reaction. He was right to warn me. My mother called me 3 days after Uncle Richard's funeral. Screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You manipulated him. You poisoned him against his own family. $18 million, Logan? 18 million? And you get all of it. I didn't know, Mom. I didn't ask for this. You absolutely asked for this. You've been playing the poor, struggling social worker for years, making him feel sorry for you. I am a social worker. I do struggle. That's not an act. You're a con artist. You conned a sick old man out of his fortune. My father got on the phone. We're contesting the will. This is elder abuse. The lawyer said it's airtight. We'll see about that. They did contest it. It cost them $80,000 in legal fees and went exactly nowhere. James had prepared for this. Uncle Richard had prepared for this. Brandon sent me a text. I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family. Michelle sent me an email. I always knew you were selfish. But this is a new low. Uncle Richard was confused in his final months. You took advantage of that. You should be ashamed. But I wasn't confused. Uncle Richard had known exactly what he was doing. He'd given me 2 tests. The first was whether I'd trust him. I passed. The second was whether I'd keep it quiet this time. And this time I did. I didn't tell anyone about the 18 million. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even Marcus. I hired James Morrison to manage the estate quietly. I set up a foundation for at-risk youth. I paid off my car. I bought a modest house in a decent neighborhood. And I quit seeking validation from a family that would never give it. 6 months after Uncle Richard died, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a framed photo of Uncle Richard and me from my graduation, him in the front row, cheering. And a note. I'm proud of you, kid. Always was. Always will be. RP. I hung it in my new house, in my office, where I could see it every day. And whenever I doubted myself, whenever that voice in my head that sounded like my mother told me I wasn't good enough, I looked at that photo and remembered, I was enough for the person who mattered most. I always had been,